we started by quoting mother's words, that depression is always a sign of acute egoism. And we went on to understand why does mother say this? Because egoism is not just arrogance, that's a very superficial way of understanding it. Ego or our sense of I is a sense of separation from the rest. Ego is self-regard, the constant absorption in the thought, I, me, myself, what will I get, how will I progress, what will happen to me, etc. And the more we keep thinking about ourselves, the more we create narratives to make ourselves unhappy. And this is the fundamental dysfunction that Toll talks about. The dysfunction that makes me feel I am separate from the rest and creates insecurity, feeling threatened, need to compete to survive, etc. The Buddha says that if we live with this function, no matter where we go, we'll encounter suffering. And Sri Aurobindo beautifully says that the ego doesn't even have an ontological reality. It's a mental construct. Because he says everything we are on our outside is nature or prakriti. Everything we are on the inside is spirit or purusha. So if our inside and outside, there's no place for the ego is just a superimposition, an adhyaropa, a mental construct, which somehow the mind creates. So the Sufi would say that whenever you're on the road to hell of jealousy, ego, anger, remind yourself you don't exist as the ego. So what's the problem? And cut short that road to hell. So if I'm not the ego, what am I really? Jesus speaks of the I am, the aham, that one field of awareness which is omnipresent, which is present everywhere. Now, the moment thought comes into that aham, the ego is born. Patanjali explains it like this, that every chitta vritti or thought is made up of three components. There is manas, perception, you see, hear, sense something. And then there's buddhi, which compares the perception with something in your memory bank to label it, to know it. And then once you think you know it, your ahankar, the akar your aham takes, will step in to judge it as, I like this, I don't like this is fortunate, this is unfortunate, this is good, this is bad, and judgment will come in. So every thought in some way or the other will have some flavor of judgment. And that judgment is the ahankar, the akar, the shuddh aham takes because of the optical illusion of I. But this is where our dysfunction comes in. Toll says, it has been said God is love, but this is not correct. God is the one life in and beyond countless life forms. Love implies duality, lover and beloved, subject and object. So love is recognition of oneness in the world of duality. And Sri Aurobindo defines love beautifully. Love is the yearning of the one for the one. And he says unity is the substance of the heart. So, when we really are in this state of oneness or love, there is no judgment. Karen Miller beautifully says, when you love, really love, you just see. You see things as they are, not as you expect. And in that wide open space is love. When you see your life, you bring it to life. When you don't see your life, it is lifeless. Because you're not really seeing the present moment and the ordinary miracles it is abounding with. You are only seeing your narratives, your sense of I, and the constant judgment of reality that it brings. Karen Miller further says, whatever appears in front of you is your liberation. That is, until you judge it. Then you imprison yourself again. So if we can stop at pure perception, not try to know something. In fact, that's a very powerful practice from Vedanta, to observe without trying to know it. Because what will we really do by knowing it? We'll find a word that labels it. And the mind will trick us into thinking that once we've labeled it, we know it. But just because we label a blade of grass as grass, do we know it? Do we know the magic that makes up that blade of grass? But instead, if we lived our whole lives in gratitude, with a vision full of wonder, that everything my eyes falls on is God. And if I cannot know God with my intellect, I cannot know the objects I am seeing. I can only love them. Mother Teresa says this, when I judge, I have no time to love. So to love is to be present to reality, to life, relinquishing any attempts to know it, because I'll never know it. So when I interact with things on a daily basis, let me drop the sense of I just by recognizing it doesn't exist. It's an optical illusion of consciousness. And instead of paying attention to the I, instead of bringing the burden of the I to the moment, I pay full attention to the moment. Paying full attention to the moment without judgment is loving it. It's accessing the power of now. It's accessing the power of love.